MTTB Music Podcast.
I can see the little thing moving.
Yeah.
As the actress said to the bishop. So, I think this is podcast 4.
I think it is, if you can hear me okay. You can hear me okay?
I can hear you okay, yes.
Oh,
and I can see the little things moving up and down.
I see. I also see little things moving up and down.
Yes, the WAVs. The WAVs are with us. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm not sure the WAVs are 2 meters apart, though. That's the problem.
Well, we're certainly 2 meters apart.
Yeah. More than 2 miles apart, indeed.
Yeah, exactly. At least a borough apart.
Oh, yes. So we're safe. I think unless COVID can be passed over the internet, which I'm sure there probably are some
I'm sure.
People online who think this is true.
Just disable the 5G. There we go.
Oh, yeah. Thankfully, my phone's only 4G. Otherwise, I'd be worried, mate. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're back with 6 brand new records to review. On this podcast, we shall be reviewing new albums by The Strokes, Pearl Jam, Dua Lipa, All Time Low, Laura Marling, and Fiona Apple. So let's kick off with you, Pete, and the 6th album from The Strokes, the new Abnormal. It's their first record, apparently, since 2013's Come Down Machine, which, if I remember rightly, wasn't really that worth talking about, which may have been why we didn't bother reviewing it.
No, we didn't, did we? I was trying to think if we'd ever reviewed an album of theirs, but no.
No, this is the first album we've reviewed by theirs. I think Come Down Machine is the only one we could have done before this one. So
yeah, because they've sort of been quiet, haven't they, for the last decade, apart from the occasional stroke. Let me get my voice on. I mostly like this album, particularly the beginning. I thought the opening tracks. There's something very familiar about the Strokes, and I think it's probably testament. Again, us not reviewing the last album, who's to say? I think this was very much a very return to form. Too early for the cliches, but there's something very familiar about their style of music, and I think that probably speaks to how influential they have become in the intervening decade and a half or so since they first sort of burst onto the scene. And in that most of the sort of indie rock guitar-driven bands that we've reviewed on this podcast over the last 10 years feel like they could be Strokes albums. And I mean this in the nicest possible way. This isn't a backhanded compliment. I actually think this album in particular reflects very much where that genre of music is and has been for several years. Again, that's not a backhanded compliment. I actually think it's really sharp. I overall really liked this album, more so than I thought I would as well. Because I don't know about you, since the early noughties, they haven't really registered for me as a band at all. They've sort of fallen into that black hole of bands that, them.
Yes.
Yeah, we purport to be music fans, and yet there are some real obvious ones that we've missed over the last however long we've been going. And I think they definitely fit into that category, as you've alluded to at the top. So in particular, I really liked, there's a couple of tracks I pulled out because I just felt they were very typical, but again, I think really fairly, really good. I like Selfless towards the start of the album. As I said at the beginning, I really like the beginning of the album. So the first few tracks, to be honest, there really isn't a bum track on here. I actually listened to the whole album a couple of times at least, and there was never a moment I was bored. There was never a moment I thought, oh yeah, that's the duffer, that's the filler. It's all killer. So I mean, Selfless I particularly like. I also liked, there was a really interesting use of synths and electronica on a couple of tracks as well. I'll pull out Brooklyn Bridge to Chorus. I
really like that. It's kind of like a disco indie pop.
Exactly. And a clever title too. But yeah, I really like this, that real sort of synth-driven opening, which was quite different actually to the rest of the album. I think there was, I can't remember what was it called, a track further along towards the end as well, where they repeated the same trick, and I thought, ooh, that's good, I like it. Synths. I love a synth. So, indeed. So, overall, as I say, really liked it. I'll stop waffling.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you've done there were things that appealed to me generally about the album. I think it was actually musically more varied than you might have predicted, shall we say.
Exactly.
I mean, when we go back to when they made their big splash, if you like, so 2001, I think it was. Is this it? And I have to confess, I was, many of my friends and people whose taste I respect and still respect, really like this album. And I just, it didn't really rock my boat when it came out originally. In fact, I was one of those people that kind of thought the title kind of summed it up a bit. It was like, is it? Yeah. But, I mean, time, to be fair, has mellowed me a bit on the album particularly. But you're right in the sense that, regardless of my opinion of the record itself, a bit like the Stone Roses debut album that we discussed before, both were definitely albums that have influenced bands since. So whilst their original album was one that was heavily influenced by other people, the way they packaged that album then influenced lots of indie bands over the last 20 years. And I was thinking, do I really want to listen to a Strokes record? Then I thought, Rick Rubin's produced it. Maybe that'll be interesting. And as you say, I think this is, quite a fun and enjoyable record, really. Also, like you said, the basic sound of the band is definitely still there. But there's a bit more going on. And I agree with you that the start, particularly Adults Are Talking, Selfless, Brooklyn Bridge to Chorus particularly, really, really strong start. Speaking of influences, it's good to see them lifting Billy Idol's Dancing With Myself on Bad Decisions and the Psychedelic Furs Ghost in You on Eternal Summer. Although I think they have credited both of those since. And also, actually, on Eternal Summer, this starts off with a kind of falsetto vocal thing, and then goes all a bit kind of Pink Floyd-y vocally halfway through it, which I thought was quite interesting. But yeah, it's 45 minutes, rattled along. So it's quite enjoyable. Yeah. Yeah,
I agree. Really, really good. Really, really good.
So, moving on to another band. I'm not sure if we've reviewed Pearl Jam before or not. Again, another one. I'd have to look it up. If I only had time on my hands, being at home, I could perhaps do this. But clearly I haven't. Anyway, it's Pearl Jam's 11th album, but again, first in 7 years. So again, if we have reviewed them, it probably would have been their previous album. This is an interesting one, probably because it's one of the longer albums, maybe the longest album on the podcast. So it's just clocking in just under an hour. On the positive side, I was impressed to find that the band still sound actually remarkably fresh. On the less positive side, I found the album a bit uneven. Although perhaps for a good reason, because I felt that actually they were trying to be slightly more adventurous with their sound and being less constrained by their brand, if you like, with some more interesting song arrangements. But the album did feel long. And the fact that 17 minutes of that almost hour is taken up by the final 3 tracks, I think is quite telling. But again, on the positive side, starts off great. Whoever said Super Blood Wolfman, Dance to the Clairvoyance, which is possibly my favourite track on the album. All really, really great songs. It then kind of like gets a bit. Then at 7 o'clock bang in the middle of the album, which again I think is really, really good. And the rest of it is fine. And if you listen to the tracks individually, they're all fine, but it kind of lost me a bit towards the end of the record, and I was a bit kind of, yeah. I'd have preferred it if it had been a 40-minute album rather than a 57-minute album, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I thought, again, you mentioned they sound fresh. I put at the top of my notes here, his voice sounds as certain as it ever did, which is, remarkable. They sound fresh. He sounds fresh. It begins a really sort of. It starts really well, but again, like the Strokes album, first few tracks really enjoyed. I think it was the first track, which
whoever said it's really good. Yeah,
it feels like 3 tracks in one, and you think, oh, this album's got pace, which is massively disappointing when you get further on, because it starts with such pace and such fervour. I thought, this is going to be good. I'm going to enjoy this. And then, as you say, by about halfway through the album, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of done now.
Yeah, it's like, it's not bad, and everything's still fine. You're just thinking, it stops kind of grabbing your attention.
Yeah, and it gets, after that sort of burst of energy at the beginning, it gets a lot calmer and a lot gentler as it sort of slows down through the gears. It doesn't move up through the gears. It sort of slows down. And I think when you get to that 17-minute, run of
last 3 tracks, yeah.
I mean, it's positively middle of the road, which is probably, I think, one of the worst things you can say about a band such as Pearl Jam, considering where they've come from.
Indeed, yes.
No, it's really not so great.
Yeah, half great, half not great.
Yeah, exactly. There's a really good EP in there somewhere.
Moving on to pop, in fact. The second album from Dua Lipa, Future Nostalgia, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Yes. So, keeping up, I think, our habit of reviewing pop as well as rock, are we down with the Dua?
Definitely. I really enjoyed this album. I'm not ashamed to say it. It's, as you know, I always look forward to our first big pop album of the year. It's usually about this time of year. It's usually around, oh no, we've had the Pet Shop Boys, sorry. It's usually around this time of year we get a big summer pop album.
Because we all had the Halsey album as well, but again, this is slightly more Kylie disco vibe on it.
Exactly. The Halsey album was great too. This has got that real sort of summer vibe to it. You're just going to hear it over and over and over again, and you don't mind. It sounds great. You used the word fresh earlier. This sounds fresh. It's a great pop album, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's because it harks back to some of the great pop albums of my youth. I mean, there's no escaping that the track Physical is just drenched in the 1980s.
Indeed.
And all the stuff that I'd have probably laughed at and dismissed in the 1980s. I love about it. And And again, I think it's one of the late. There's a few samples on here as well. I kept hearing things that I know are definitely sampled from other places. Love Again,
yes,
for example.
I meant to look up.
Yeah.
So funny enough, I've got a post-it note literally in front of me on the desk here saying, "Look up where the samples from these two tracks are from," and I haven't bothered doing it.
I'm doing it now because it was.
Is there a sampling? Is it Cool as well that's got a sample in it? I'm trying to think of the one that's got a sample in it.
Yeah, I was like, "Where's that from? Where's that sample from?" Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, got it. Love Again is Whitetown. Do you remember? Late 90s. I Can Never Be Your Woman.
Yes.
Yeah, by Whitetown. That one.
Yes.
Yeah, really, really clever use of a sample there. So there you go. So not only is it drenched in 80s, it's picked up something from the sort of mid to late 90s as well. Everything is nostalgia these days. Tish. So yeah, no, really enjoyed it. Great album.
Yeah, I think it's a fun record as well. I mean, there are several things I like about it. One, its length. It is 37 minutes long. It's a pop album that's 37 minutes long. That's how long a pop album should be. You know, rock albums, you know, you're meant to be up your own arse a bit. Pop albums, it should be 3-minute pop songs. Your album should be this long. What I like, and it sounds great, which is quite surprising given that no two songs are produced by the same person or group of people.
That's remarkable.
Despite that, the album does sound coherent and works as an album as well as a collection of songs to be playlisted, which is what's going to happen for most of the target audience of the record. But as you say, I think Dua Lipa and her bunch of well-chosen co-writers have crafted a collection of songs that are, you know, bright, infectious in a no-COVID manner, and yeah, just enjoyable. I mean, I think the three singles. I think there's been 3 singles so far, which are "Don't Start Now," "Break My Heart," and "Physical," which you've already mentioned. I think they are certainly 3 of the standout cuts, and I think "Physical" is the standout track on the album for me. Along with "Boys Will Be Boys," actually, at the end of the album, which obviously is quite a nice kind of almost not quite Me Too-ish, but certainly along the lines of, you know, mansplaining type. And, you know, boys will get forgiven for doing stuff that girls won't get forgiven doing kind of song. And that's going to be like that song's actually under 2 minutes. No, under 3 minutes, sorry. Yeah, even better.
Very strong. Yeah.
But yeah, it's an old-fashioned album. It's something that's under 40 minutes, starts, zaps through, finishes, and you kind of go, yeah, that's fun. I'd still take the Halsey album that we reviewed a couple of podcasts ago over this one. It has to be said, if it had to pick one or the other.
Ooh.
However, it's still a really good pop record, and on this evidence, Miss Lipa is certainly one of the better proponents of modern pop music out there.
Ooh, wow. Praise indeed.
We move on to... What do we move on to? Oh, we're moving on to All Time Low, Wake Up Sunshine. Another band we've not reviewed before. This is their 8th studio album.
No.
Yeah. From the band from Maryland. So they're now one of the longest-standing proponents of the pop-punk genre that was sort of started off by the likes of Green Day and Blink-182 all those years ago. I think the last time we reviewed anything that kind of fitted into this genre was possibly the 5 Seconds of Summer album we did a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah.
2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever. So, yeah, kind of does what it says in the genre tin, really, for being honest about it. For me, this is one of those records that I found quite enjoyable while I was actually listening to it. but apart from a couple of tracks, which I'll name in a minute, there wasn't anything that really stuck out. And whilst it was quite jolly and fun, whilst it was on, it was all a bit interchangeable and didn't really get under my skin particularly. The songs that I would say were the ones that broke out of that particular thing were Sleeping In, which is certainly been one of the singles. There's a very fun video for that, which involved the band seemingly all being dumped by their girlfriends and then going to get rescue animals to fill the emotional void. Well worth checking out. It's actually quite entertaining. Wake Up Sunshine, which I also liked, and towards a bit further on the album, Safe, which I thought was a really good track. Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those albums that, like I said, I listened to, quite enjoyed when it was on, and then it was a bit forgettable apart from those tracks when it wasn't on. But yeah, fine.
Yeah. No, I was bored. I didn't like it.
You know, punkness.
It's not that. It's just maybe it's that sort of bubblegum skater punk rock. It's not in the same league as Green Day. How dare you? Yeah, it's like we did review the 5 Seconds of Summer album a couple of years ago. I don't think I just think this sound, and without sounding like a cantankerous old man, which I'm fast becoming, I just think this sound has had its day. It's Green Day, no. It sounds awfully dated now, awfully dated. It's the sort of stuff you hear on sort of late 90s movies soundtracks. You know, the sort of thing.
Ouch. Ouch.
You know, it's just that, you know, that sort of thing. You know, I was just bored with this album, and all right, okay. What can I say? Yeah, I'm being pretty harsh. But then in the middle of the album, it does seem to sort of finds its feet and settles down. And yeah, you get to tracks like Monsters and Safe. I think Monsters is a single as well, I think. Yeah, I like those tracks. And I also like Melancholy Kaleidoscope and Summer Days as well. You know, so I think at the beginning it just sort of, it felt very, you know, formulated, but actually I got into it. But like you, I suppose, and once I sort of said, I appreciated it for what it was towards the end, but then I put it down and completely forgot about it again.
Yeah. It was one of the albums when I was trying to make some notes for the podcast, I realised I'd listened to the album 3 times, and apart from what someone say the one the video, apart from Sleeping In,
yeah,
I only remember that because Sarah and I had watched the video for it a couple of times.
Yeah, without the video, it was just dull. I guess with the video made it memorable.
Yeah, seriously, you should definitely check out YouTube later on. Check out the video of Sleeping In. It is quite entertaining.
I like that. That's fine. That's cool. I like that, I suppose. Yeah, and I'm sorry, this didn't do it for me at all. And I guess this particular genre's not going to do it for me anymore. Those days are gone.
There you go.
I did go. That wasn't a review. Exactly. That wasn't just a review of a band. That was a review of a whole genre. I'm finished.
I like that. That's what we're missing on this podcast. Kind of like people just drawing a line on this and go, no, not having this anymore.
No.
Well, I kind of did that with the Drake album, but you know.
Yeah.
You know. We were quite happy to diss one of the best-selling albums of all time.
I remember. I was just dull.
Yeah. What did we know about music? Really not a lot.
But that's the irony, you see. The Drake album, oh, don't get me started. We love that genre. We really got into that genre, you know.
Well, it's true, yes.
Yeah,
it's true.
You know, there's so many better artists out there. But there we go, I'm done. I'll shut up.
Okay, we finish we finished the ladies, actually.
All right.
2 ladies. So, first of all, we have the 7th album from Laura Marling, Song for Our Daughter. All the songs apparently written to an imaginary child. This was an album that wasn't meant to come out until August, September, but she moved it forward due to the pandemic and decided, fuck it, it's done. Let's just get out there.
Oh, it's a lockdown album.
Yeah. So this is someone we have reviewed before. So we definitely at least reviewed her last album that I think that we both quite liked.
Yes.
Not sure if we've reviewed more than one or not, but definitely the last one, Semper, whatever it was called. Yeah, whatever it was called.
We also reviewed her collaboration. Was it last year, year before? No, it wouldn't be last year, would it? No.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
We did. Yes. Anywho, Miss Marling, she's back.
Yeah.
Is it any?
So I'm still calming down. which this album would help with. It's
yeah, well, indeed, yes.
Exactly, and it's a very quiet, reflective album. Again, a second half probably more settled and stronger, I felt. Maybe it just took me a few listens to sort of take it in because it does start so quietly overall.
You saying that's quite funny because I've literally written in my notes, second half more relaxed musically.
Yeah, exactly. It just feels more confident. It was just more enjoyable the second half. But overall I liked the album, but I just felt that the second half was definitely more relaxed and more at ease. And there were tracks on there like Fortune, which I like. It had a sort of very Beatlesy sort of she's leaving home sort of vibe to the story that
Yeah, see, I hadn't thought of that, but now you mention it, yeah.
Yeah. Sort of that sort of vibe to the story. And I think For You as well was my other standout from the album. Again, I think towards the end.
Yes, I think For You is definitely one of the best tracks on the record.
One of the best tracks. Thank you. So overall, I really like this. Very acoustic. I remember the collaboration we listened to last year was very, obviously, because it's got by nature of the collaboration, it was very different and very much more upbeat, whereas this felt more like a sort of return to base, what you would expect from a Laura Marling record. And I can see now, having explained her decision to push it forward in these times, as it were, that sort of that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I suppose so. I haven't really thought that either, but yeah, I think you're right. I think you talk about the collaboration, which again I can't remember which called either, but yes, but it was a very good record. But yes, that album and indeed the last Laura Marling album was definitely a bit more upbeat and had more guitars and stuff going on in it. Well, and this, as you say, this is definitely more a step backwards towards a more stripped back, simple acoustic sound. And I was a bit lukewarm to this actually on the first couple of listens. I was just like thinking, this is strange, Always quite like Laura Marling. This is a bit kind of,
It surprises me.
And then it was our old favourite, the classic third listen, where I kind of went, okay, yeah, now I get it. It's coming together. Yeah, I get it. And I'm like you. I do like I agree with you. The second half, I do prefer the second half generally, but I also do like the first two tracks. I really like Alexandra, which is kind of inspired or in reference to a Leonard Cohen song called Alexandra's Leaving. I really like that song. I like the lyrics in that song. Lyric in it where it says, and I didn't write this down, but was it? I had to try, a fuck to give. Why should I die so you can live? Which I thought was a nice, just fun lyric. I may mention the lyrics in the next album, but for this one, and I also liked Held Down as well, because I really liked the bass line in it. The bass line it's a really great bass line that drives the song in that song, which is just draws you into the thing. But I should say the second half of the album is quite lovely, really, I suppose.
Yeah.
It was And I say the final track, particularly for you, is just a cracking song. Also, lengthwise, big tick again. This is an album that's 36 minutes long. Yay, Laura.
And it was Lump, by the way.
Don't give your audience time to get bored.
Yeah.
Just, you know.
It was Lump, by the way. I just looked it up.
Lump, yes.
Yeah, the collaboration. But that's all by the by, because this is a classic Laura Marling album.
Yeah, I might have to dig the Lump album again, actually.
There you go.
I might have to give that a spin in the next couple of days. Okay, we move on, finally, to Fiona Apple, and perhaps surprisingly only the 5th album from her since she released her debut album back in 1996.
Yeah.
It's funny because I remember buying her second album, When the Pawn, blah 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 blah. I can't recite the entire title. I think at the time it was the longest album title ever, but has since been beaten by other things. And I remember buying it because I'd read reviews of it in the music press and kind of thinking, oh yeah, she's getting great reviews, and there's lots of artists I like who are saying that she's great. Well, I bought it, and I really fucking hated it. It was just really, really hated it. The more to the point, I didn't get it. I didn't see what others saw in it. Didn't see what anyone else was hearing, seeing, and it's just like, oh no. And to be honest, it kind of put me off Miss Apple. So much so that until listening to this record, I'm not sure, other than perhaps maybe hearing songs on the radio, although she's not played on the radio a lot. I'm not sure I've ever listened to anything by her since.
Yeah.
And I have to say, on the first listen to this album, a lot of that suppressed inbuilt memories of my loathing came flooding back. And it was like, yes, this is why I didn't get to like her music. Yes, yes, I was right. Yes. However, the astute of you listening can probably guess I'm setting this up for a big butt.
Yeah.
And you'd be correct, because by the second or third listen to this album, I was suddenly enchanted, addicted to the lyrics and the music of this album. And I was, captured, I think, is the best word for it. This is one of the most compelling records I've listened to for quite a while. It's certainly the most musically challenging record on the podcast, and perhaps the most musically challenging record we've listened to, certainly this year.
Yes.
And it's an album that lyrically covers love, longing, Me Too, rape, bullying, and much, much more. And really, really love this record. The arrangements of the songs, the use of the instrumentation is strange, inventive, surprising. And then that's all kind of put together with really, really sharp, insightful lyrics and storytelling in the songs themselves. So I really like, particularly, just generally song-wise and the storytelling. The first track, I Want You to Love Me, which is just almost a great piece of pop, but a subversive pop. Shamika, which is sort of a song about bullying, but is just a song that I spent most of last week walking around the house singing Shamika, much to the bizarre looks I was getting from the rest of my house. I'm going, what are you, what? Shamika, who's Shamika, what? And then the title track, Fetch the Bolt Cutters, which is the song I've been singing most of this week, or at least the title bit, which is just great. But where it comes into its own is where you kind of read some of the stories about the things. And again, it's interesting that we were just talking about the Laura Marling album, where you've got For You on that album. On this album, you've got a song called for her, which is again very much of a Me Too type thing, and apparently a song written based on a story from a friend, which has the very stark line, good morning, you raped me in the same bed your daughter was born in," which works brilliantly, partly because the lyric is so in your face, but also anyone that has a knowledge of any kind of musicals from growing up would know the good morning, kind of Doris Day kind of thing going on, which makes it really, really subversive. So yeah, love this record. It's not faultless, but what it does really well, and it's that classic thing that people always say about art, about any kind of art, and go, yeah, art should be challenging. Not always. Dua Lipa has proven that earlier on. It should also be, it can also just be just enjoyable. But this is challenging, surprising, and just a really, really interesting record. Really, really like it.
Yeah, I agree with much of what you said. It's not what I expected at all. Whereas you obviously had expectations at the start there.
Yes, there wasn't a high bar to get over for me.
No, it wasn't quite what I expected at all. And like you, it's a name. I'm aware of. I was very aware of around the time of her, debut record and the follow up, but then sort of forgot about. So my expectations, I had none, but this is certainly not what I expected at all. I thought it was, again, very cleverly directed lyrically, very angry, but very well directed anger, if that makes sense, across the whole album, touching on many of the themes, in fact, touching all the themes you've discussed already, and done it in a very sort of knowing way. Again, as with some of the other albums we've talked about today, I thought the first half was definitely more difficult to listen to. Tons of percussion.
Yes,
and there was, that was a theme for the whole album, but particularly in that first half, lots of stomping and clapping and banging and more stomping and just noise, but done in a rhythmic sort of a acoustic kind of way. Again, second half then perhaps more melodious, more traditional, for want of a better word, but less experimental maybe. Again, some really quite kind of dark but almost funny lyrics. I mean,
yes.
Under the Table.
Love it.
Love that. And I think it's Ladies. And I like the idea in that of things being left behind in relationships and being passed on from woman to woman in a sort of knowing way. I think she refers in that song to, the dress being left, but it belonged to the ex-wife anyway. So what the hell? And
there's also that thing. There's also that kind of feeling, that song of that whole kind of thing of, remember, if your boyfriend's cheated on you, it's not the girl he's cheated on. She's not the enemy. She's not the person that you should be angry with. It's him, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean. That sort of cleverly directed anger. I really, really liked it. I liked it much more than I thought I would.
Ditto.
There you go.
Yes. You're basically supposed to hear it's my album of the month. But,
wow. That's good thought. I think for me it has to be Dua Lipa because I love pop and I hate skater boy punk rock.
Well, I think for most people listening that Lipa and Fiona could be a good
That's a good
combo.
combination. Yeah, one of them.
I would say listen to Fiona first, maybe, and then cheer yourself up with a bit of Lipa afterwards.
Yeah, that's not to say. Yeah, that they're both very good albums in their own right for very, very different reasons.
Indeed. Right. We've done another one. We've come to the end. We will be back.
Wonderful.
It's not a threat. It's a promise. Until the next lockdown recording, which may be sooner than you think.
It's very likely.
Farewell for now.
See you then.